Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast, where John Farquhar and Chris Harris, we discuss everything that has to do with trucking risk, and trucking insurance. This episode, we are continuing on that deep rabbit hole of discussing truck driver files and what needs to be in a truck driver file. Let me grab Johnny. Johnny, come on in here. Hey, John.
How you doing, Chris? Good to see you again.
It's good. It's a Friday.
It is. Another Friday. Yay!
Oh, God, John. It's Friday. Anyways, we have been discussing truck driver files. We've talked about the application form. Mm-hmm. We talked about references. Yes. We've talked about the need to do a road test. And today we are talking about...
Driver abstracts, license abstracts, driver licenses, all that good stuff.
Yeah, abstracts, driver's licenses, and in Ontario or in Alberta, the commercial driver abstract, right? Mm-hmm. Since Alberta, I believe, is that right, John? Alberta is the only other province that has a commercial?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Well, hey, maybe we should talk very quickly before we get into it. Is there a need for a commercial driver's abstract? Like in the provinces that don't have one, are they missing out? Are recruiters missing out on information? This wasn't on the agenda, but...
Yeah, no, from what I've seen, like some of them are nice and simple. Abstracts are very simple, and they just include everything, whether it be commercial related or not commercial related. It's all on that one abstract. So I guess, as long as you're getting all the information, that's one of the key areas. But I don't know if the other provinces are even considering doing a split abstract. I'm not sure. That'd be something to ask the provinces.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was one of those things that came into my head.
Yeah.
Hey,
exactly. A spark that lit.
Kind of. It's unusual that it still works from time to time. But okay, let me bring this up here. And since this page came up, this isn't the way I wanted to do this, but this page happened to come up.
Sure, going to come up anyway.
It's going to come up eventually anyways.
Yep.
One of the things that I really encourage everyone who keeps truck driver files to do is to keep the original driver abstract, or MVR, motor vehicle record. And if you do have a commercial abstract for your drivers, keep the originals. And this is to fight if you get accused of this, negligent hiring. Mm-hmm. Thoughts, Johnny, on negligent hiring?
Oh God, you don't want to get caught in this one. This will hurt if you're negligent, and unfortunately we see it in some motor carriers where they're not doing their due diligence when it comes to properly qualifying that driver. So there's a number of steps, and hence that's what this series is about, is, number of those steps that we make sure that you cover off. And we're trying to help these people. Don't get caught being negligent in your hiring practices.
So one of the things when it comes to negligent hiring or one of the ways to fight it is, how did you make that original decision to hire this driver? And so I really think the original abstract and the original commercial abstract have a big influence on your reasoning for hiring that driver. So I want you to keep it for as long as that driver works for you.
Right. It's supporting that decision, right? So it's part of that evidence to say, when I hired this guy, look, he had 0 infractions, 0 demerit points, clean abstract record and whatnot. And then maybe a year, 2 years down the road, he picks up a couple of violations, some bad behaviors he's picked up, right? Well, if he gets involved in a crash, nobody can come back and go, oh, you hired the wrong guy. Well, no. Oh, I don't have the original abstract. But if I do, then that's going to show he had a clean driving abstract. So, and then obviously other documents that are going to go with it to provide proof that, hey, he was a good driver at the time of hire.
Yeah, and that's what we want, is that you've got, in a negligent hiring accusation, that's what you've got to prove, is that at the time of hire, this was a good, reasonable, logical choice.
Right.
So keep all the evidence. And
Well, because that's past history, right? That the motor carrier wouldn't necessarily see or be able to get. Because once the driver's on board with your company, then okay, no problem. I can see all interactions based on my US DOT, so not a problem. But prior to that driver coming to me, it's it has a bit of the same ring as the clearinghouse with drug and alcohol. I can see past history. So now we're getting off in another area that we don't want to go yet. But the idea is I'm looking for past history.
Because I really believe to fight negligent hiring, and the other piece of that is that I always say negligent hiring and negligent entrustment. That's what the lawsuit's going to say. We're not talking about entrustment, but the negligent hiring part is very, you've got to be able to refute or rebut.
Yep, exactly.
But hey, we are talking about the abstract, so we need abstracts. John, what would, this was a question, I was talking with Kevin Carroll of ISB today. One of the questions he asked me, which is a great question, what things on an abstract should or could disqualify an applicant? I said, oh my goodness. That's a great question, Kevin.
Yes.
Thanks for asking. So, and I mentioned a couple of things. Such as, of course, drinking and driving or impaired driving, of course, would be one thing. Within a certain number of years, and I'm not sure what that number is, but within a certain number of years, maybe 3 or 5. Also, administrative suspensions. All right, and for those of you who aren't clear on what that is, that's when you get your license suspended for, 24 or 36 hours or 72 hours at the side of the road. When you blow greater than 0.05, but you don't blow 0.08. So that would be one of the administrative suspensions that you could get. So anything like that on the abstract, I'm thinking disqualifies an applicant. Are there
dangerous
others?
Driving?
Dangerous driving.
Careless driving. That'll be a quick one. Racing. How about hit and run?
Oh, God, yeah. Hit and run would, I like the ones, not that I like it, sorry. But one of the ones what's the charge when you're doing greater than 50 kilometers above the speed limit? Is that racing or dangerous?
That's stunt driving. Stunt driving.
Yeah, I like. Not that I like that one, but I think that one's that would be on that list as well.
Well, and people need to understand why these would disqualify them, because it might not hurt you in another type of job, but hang on, we're talking about driving for a career. So you don't need these kinds of behaviors showing up on your driver abstract, even if it happened in your car. That behavior is going to extend into that commercial motor vehicle.
Well, and most companies, if they don't have this policy, they need this policy, but most companies have a policy that the drivers are to tell the employer about all infractions that happen in their personal car, especially accidents, but all infractions, because it may affect the insurability of you by that insurance company that insures that truck.
Yes. Well, and there's nothing worse than having your insurance company call you up and go, it's renewal time, and I noticed by the abstract that this driver has these particular behaviors, and you get caught off guard because you did not know that.
Yes. And part of that, by the way, is one of the things in an MTO audit, if you're from Ontario, that they look to see that you know about all collisions in the last 24 months. And they stress all collisions, including personal vehicles. So it's an important part of the audit process. You need to have that. So that, again, would be on the MVR, but they want to see evidence that the driver told you and that you took some action about it, at least made a note and put it into the file.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's the perfect opportunity to utilize a document to do an annual review, because that's exactly what you're doing, is looking at the MVR, the CBO abstracts, and then sitting with the driver to go, is there something you haven't told me? So
Yes, annual reviews. Again, this is, and it is on, if I can bring that up now, it is on the list of things here.
And where it ties in with the MVRs is because that's some of the tools that you're using as part of that annual review.
Yep. Oh, hang on now. Back to publish. There we go. So,
there you go.
This is, where is annual review on my, there it is, down at the very bottom almost.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So annual review is something that MTO has written about in their CVR manual that they want you to do.
Sure.
Exactly. And of course, if you go to the States, right, John? It is a requirement.
Mandatory. It's a requirement by regulation. Yes.
Yeah. So many things are best practice that MTO tells you about. Yep. So getting back to the abstracts, and why do we need, or getting back to the topic of the show, why do we need a copy of the driver's license in the file?
Well, we want to be able to verify that they have a valid driver's license. The abstract will also say this, and you want to be able to compare the two of them. And the bonus part is the driver's license will actually have a picture of the driver to make sure you're talking to the same person,
And John, have you ever had an applicant that had a different license number on his license and then on the abstract?
Yes. Same name, but different driver's license. Like, whoa, hang on here. What's going on? And it's common because there's a lot of people with the same name, Bill Smith, Joe
Chris
Blow,
Harris?
whatever be, Yeah, and we see a lot of different names. And with a lot of new Canadians coming in, we've got some unique names, some different kinds of names. But there are actually a lot of people that I'm seeing, immigrants coming into Canada that only have one name. They don't have a last name or a middle name or anything like that. Yeah. They just have one name, and that's all they were given at birth. So that's what's on their driver's license. And when you get two people that coincidentally work at the same company with the same name, okay, hang on now here. We need to verify by pictures, other identification and whatnot, and compare these.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think I've told you the story. I don't know if I've told it on the podcast or not, where I was interviewing a driver and I looked at the driver's license, and here in Ontario, the driver's license number is very specific, and there's certain components to it. And here I was, this gentleman looked like a gentleman, and yet he had a female driver's license number.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it turned out when after the interview was over, which I didn't hire him, of course, I called the police to say that I had done this interview, and the police said, that's great, thank you very much. We're looking for that gentleman because he was wanted on a warrant. He was asked to leave Canada, and he hadn't left yet.
Interesting. There you go.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny. And they said, you wouldn't happen to have a picture of him, would you? Or sorry, they asked me if I took a copy of the driver's license, and I said, yeah, I did. I also, in those days, it was a Polaroid. I mean, we would do digital, but I took a Polaroid. They went, what? They were in my office within 20 minutes. They wanted the current picture of how this fellow looked. But anyways, it was kind of funny. And if you don't know, for those of you out there, that there is a way to read the driver's license and tell whether it's male or female and stuff, reach out, Johnny or I'll set you up with that. Cool. Or you can just Google it, of course. And same with a SIN number, by the way. There is a mathematical formula that you can use to... isn't it a formula?
I don't know. That's new. I hadn't heard that one before. That's interesting.
I thought it was anyways, there is a way to verify that a SIN number is legit.
Yeah.
Right? So all right.
That's interesting. Yeah.
We talked about abstracts. We talked about driver's license. Why do we need the backside of a driver's license, especially here in Ontario, when the backside of mine has almost really nothing that I can read on it?
Well, there's a barcode on the back of your driver's license.
Yeah, but I can't read that.
No, well, you got to put your glasses on. I found that out. Yeah, you got to put your glasses on. But there is also a code on there, and there are conditions on the back of your driver's license. So they need to be, again, verified, cross-referenced with your abstract. So, but it's vital information.
All right. Last question I got. Kind of.
Yep.
Maybe.
Sure.
I mean, we're
Perfect.
only a few minutes in. This is probably going to be a shorter episode, but how often? Well, yeah, and I got two questions. How often should we be pulling the abstract, in your opinion?
Yep. In my opinion.
In your in your professional. Hey, you're a safety consultant.
Opinion. Yeah, there you go. I'm a safety something. Anyway, but you should be obtaining your driver abstracts, CVOR, MVR, on a quarterly basis.
What?
Now, you could alternate that if you wanted to, but quarterly is the best practice.
Why in the world would you say quarterly, Johnny?
Well, there's this little itty bitty legislation on the books in Ontario, in the Highway Traffic Act, that talks about driver license suspensions. Yep, that way. Point that way. If your driver is found to have a suspended license or a canceled license of such sort, and they get stopped at a roadside inspection, the officer has the authority to impound the vehicle, truck, trailer, and cargo.
Impound?
Impound. Yep. So, which could really leave you in a real bind very, very quickly. So even if the driver was put out of service and said, okay, driver can't drive it, you would think, oh, just go pick up the truck and trailer. Well, no. You need to provide proof of due diligence before you can do that. And this neat little law, as it says right here, is what they say is they want you to confirm that you've been checking that driver's validity of their license within a 100-day period. So easiest way to capture that, pull the abstract on a quarterly basis. Now, don't only just pull it and put it in the file, but let's review that license license abstract. Let's find out, is there anything on here we should be aware of? Because, hey, if there's a suspension notice on that abstract, you better be parking that driver right now.
Well, and also, I mean, let's talk quick. And this was the second point. So we're going to pull the abstracts every 90 days because that's quarterly. That's easier. And I think the reason the regulation says 100 is so that we can do it every 90 days. And that's 10 days before 100. I'm a math genius.
You are smart.
I didn't take my shoes off.
Good
to do that. So, but that gives us that little bit of a buffer of 10 days. So that's perfect. What should we be checking for? There's a lot of information on a driver's abstract. What items would we be checking for?
Well, we want to continue, just no different than at the time of hire. We want to make sure the name is correct. Right? Make sure it's the same person. Driver's license number is good. Class of driver's license.
Class of drivers. Johnny.
Exactly.
How can we lose a class? I'm a Class A driver. How could I get downgraded?
Usually the common aspect is due to medical. Whether you have a medical condition or you failed to submit your renewed medical.
I have my medical sitting in the backseat of my car right now. I got to go deliver it.
Perfect. Good deal. Make sure you keep a copy.
Yes. But yeah, so if you don't hand in your medical, and by the way, the old days, we used to be downgraded to a D. No longer.
Exactly.
It goes all the way to G.
No longer. You go right to the bottom.
So,
G. Yep.
Just be aware of that.
Do not pass go. Do not collect 200.
Yeah. So there is an expiry date on the abstract. So we want to make sure that obviously the driver's license is not expired, and there is the expiry date for the medical on the abstract.
Yes.
So you said
exactly.
And class. So the license, the name, the class, and I'm adding the 2 expiry dates. Off the top of our head, is there anything else we should be checking? Well, then, of course, the history.
History, but conditions.
Yes.
Making any endorsements maybe on your license. Like obviously most everybody that has an A would also have a Z that goes with it for the air brake portion, but you may have another condition for eyeglasses or maybe some other ailment or something.
I'm trying to figure out a way to make a W. How do we make
W?
a W?
Yeah, good, like this maybe.
Okay. And for our listeners, Johnny, what does a W on an abstract indicate?
It is a waiver. It stands for a waiver. And usually if you have one on your abstract, you'll have it on your driver's license as well. It'll be on the front of your license.
I didn't know it was on the driver's license too.
Yeah, supposed to be, yeah. So a waiver means that you have a particular ailment, does not stop you from driving, but it does limit your ability to maybe operate in certain regions like the U.S.
Right. So it is often, as you say, a medical waiver that doesn't stop you from driving a commercial vehicle in Canada, but it does stop you from driving the same commercial vehicle in the States. That's the most often used thing for a W,
Yep. Now, the unfortunate aspect here, I want to kind of toss this in because a lot of people kind of think that by looking at the abstract and seeing that they have a valid medical, that the driver's A-OK to be going to travel to the U.S. or anywhere. The problem with the W form is I found it's inconsistent and it's not used in all provinces. So this causes a bit of grief, especially if you're hiring drivers out of province. So, and I use my dad as an example. He had epilepsy, had his A license, and with that, he should have had a W on his driver's license and his abstract, and he had nothing up until he decided to give it up. So Ontario was missing him for some reason or other, and he could have been traveling to the U.S. with no problem at all, and nobody would have caught him. Nobody would have known any different.
Yeah, we're still humans. We still
exactly.
There's cracks yet, but it is better than it used to be. So, everybody, we need to. We need to be doing driver's licenses, both sides, putting them in the driver file. We need to be getting the abstracts. In Ontario, we are recommending every 100 days. But, John, that's like $12 for the driver abstract, the personal abstract, another $5 for the driver's commercial abstract. Am I doing that every 100 days?
Well, the bonus part is we don't have to. We could alternate them and do one, then the other, then back to the other one, then back to the other one again. So we could. So throughout the throughout the 12 months of the year, we would actually pull 4 driver abstracts, and 2 would be MVRs and 2 would be CVR abstracts, your commercial driver license one, and you would satisfy the regulation that's on the books.
Yeah, and you would get an awful lot of information. The last thing I'd like to throw out to our listeners and watchers is start this rotation of personal, commercial abstract pulling 60 days before insurance renewal.
Yes, agreed.
Right?
Yes.
Because, of course, 60 days before insurance renewal, you should be starting the preparation for your insurance renewal. And they want to see the 3-year abstracts or the personal abstract. So 60 days before insurance renewal, pull that abstract. And then that's your start date. Every 3 months after that, you're pulling one or the other. And you just consistently keep doing that for the year. And Bob's your uncle. Everybody's got an Uncle Bob.
Exactly.
It's all
great
good.
Practice. Yeah. One more thing I wouldn't mind adding is a smart practice is to implement a process where you monitor the expiry dates of the driver's license, the medical, whatnot, an Excel sheet, or if you've got software, your transportation management system or something, where you could at least get alerts to be able to monitor. Instead of, if you've got a large fleet, the last thing you want to do is be going through the files every month to find out who's got to renew a driver's license and who's due for this and who's due for that.
Well,
So,
I mean, I was just going to say, if you're a small fleet, write it on your. I use a calendar on my computer all the time. So on the first of the month, I could write in there all my drivers. If I've only got 10 or 12 drivers, it would be easy just to put it into my calendar at the beginning of the month, remind me to get that information. As you say, a lot of the fleet dispatching software has this stuff built in, and so many of my clients don't use it, and they're paying for it.
Yeah, I know, and it's right there. So utilize it, because it can really save your bacon. Because there's nothing worse, and Chris and I, we've both seen this many times, is that renewal information that comes into the underwriter, and then it flows through to us risk guys before we come out to visit you before renewal, and we go through the driver abstracts, and guess what? There's 2 guys in the list out of 100 that have got a expired driver's license, and somebody didn't pick it up, and then when we come to meet you, you go, oh, that's embarrassing looking. I really feel bad for you. So, and it's an easy catch. So
you're right. I've done it. You've done it. You've caught it. So, hey, I think, guys, listeners, watchers, if you've got any questions about abstracts, driver's licenses, what should be in the driver file, reach out to John or myself, and we'd be happy to. And I know John's like I am. If you give us a call, if we're talking on the phone for 10 minutes with you, that's a no charge. We never want to do that to you. If we can be of service, please reach out, send us an email, give us a call. Love to talk to you. Love to give you some advice. And it's, the short ones are free. If I've got to bill you, I'll let you know long before that happens that, hey, you better get permission, because this is going to be a longer conversation. I'm going to have to send somebody an invoice. But for those 10-minute phone calls, those brief ones, I can't. It takes me longer to create an invoice.
Yes, exactly. We're more interested in sharing some information here to help you along. So
with that, I think that's a wrap. John, anything last word to add to that?
I see blue sky and sunshine. So let's get on it.
Okay. All right. With that, I will say that's a wrap for this week. We were talking about driver's license and driver abstracts, both commercial and personal. How often should you be pulling them? Hey, if you're getting value, and I'm sure you are if you've made it all the way to this part of the show, click like, subscribe, and leave John or I a comment in the notes down below. We personally answer those comments, and we'd love to hear from you. What would you like John or I to address in a future episode? Love to hear that. Do you have a suggestion for a guest that you would like to have on the show? Leave us a note, a comment. Thanks so much. With that, we are out.